Coyotes. Some see them as curious, family-oriented canines. Others see them as menacing threats to pets, people, and farm animals. In this episode of Wild About Wildlife, we are going to try and shatter some of those myths about coyotes or coyotes and look at the impact of a decision in Saskatchewan to label them as dangerous. If this is your first time joining, welcome. I'm glad that you could be here today. I am your host, Kathy Mueller, and my guests today are Megan Lawrence from Salthaven West, our clinic in Regina, Saskatchewan, and Bonnie Dell, who is with the Wildlife Rescue Society of Saskatchewan. So welcome to you both. So quick question. I grew up knowing the word as coyote, Wile E. Coyote from the cartoons and that. Is it coyote? Is it coyote? Do both work?
Both work for me. I interchange between both regularly.
In the West, it seems to be coyote. In the East, it's coyote. In the States, it's predominantly coyote. All the same animal.
Okay, great. We all know what we're talking about anyway, regardless of what we use. So if we're talking about the numbers of coyotes in Canada and what their population looks like are we in any danger of losing coyotes? What's their population like?
There is a war on coyotes in North America, and the way they are killed, there's an open season in, I think, every province in Canada, in most of the states, so you can kill coyotes for just existing. If it was working, Kathy, we would see dwindling numbers, but instead, coyotes, like many predators, self-regulate their populations. So when their territory is being diminished by overhunting, over-trapping, they will compensate by having bigger litters. So people that think they're controlling that population are really misguided, and they're contributing to an overpopulation.
From the research I was doing while I was preparing for this, I was reading that they're kind of known for being Mother Nature's cleanup crew. So what role exactly do coyotes play in our ecosystem?
They're great in that they're omnivores, so they eat a lot of small rodents. So they clean up, the pests that people call them, mice, voles, kind of things. They also eat a lot of hares and rabbits, and they eat a lot of berries, nuts, seeds. And studies have shown that less than 2% of their diet is actually domestic animals or farm animals. So they're cleaning up all the pests that people don't want. So they're very valuable that way.
If there was a world without coyotes, I guess you kind of answered the question there, then we would just see more of those, the moles and the rats and the mice. And is that correct?
Exactly. Here in Regina, we have a really strong jackrabbit population, which is one of their big things that they eat. So we get a lot of complaints about how there's too many jackrabbits in the city, but then we also get complaints about having coyotes in the city to help clean them up. They're valuable that way, and that a lot of these populations would be overrun without them.
And I've read too that they're also a keystone species. So what exactly does that mean?
It means that the environment in which they live depends on them. So they are one of the top predators. And without them, as Megan said, every other animal would be out of balance. They regulate the small mammals, including raccoons, Canada geese. They clean up, as Megan said, but as a keystone species, those other species depend on coyotes to keep their population in check and to keep that environment healthy by cleaning up, as you said.
It's kind of like the cycle of nature almost, right? That it very much self-regulates itself over time, regardless of what's going on in the climate or what humans might be doing, right? They adapt well.
And that's why we see so many of them in urban areas. An awful lot of the calls that we get here in Saskatchewan is people are shocked to see a coyote in a city. They don't understand that these animals are highly adaptive. And as our cities and towns have moved further out, I mean, people are everywhere now. They have come into the cities and they coexist very quietly with us. With that many people that phone us that are surprised to even see one, they've been here forever and they live very quietly, causing no harm in cities and thrive.
So where are they getting this bad reputation then? Like people see a coyote. Is it possible that people are getting them confused with wolves?
It's possible. I wouldn't think so. Wolves are quite a bit larger than coyotes, and they are much less in urban centers. So I think it's just a myth that people think they're going to come and attack their children or their cats or their dogs or something when they're really quite shy and they're curious species. So they may kind of want to see what's going on, but it's extremely rare that they're going to attack anyone.
That's one of the myths, right? That if you're out for a walk in the bush or something and you come across a coyote or a coyote and they start following you, you might feel like you're being stalked and you're afraid that they're going to attack or pounce at any moment. Does that actually happen?
It's very rare, and in cases where that happens, it's because they've been fed by people and habituated to people. But what coyotes do is something called escorting behavior. So if you've come into their territory, especially with your pet dog, you're on a walk, they will escort you out and they will follow along. They will do little yips and calls to let you know and let their family members know that there's, this someone in their territory, and they're going to watch you until they make sure you leave their territory.
And that's what a lot of predators do. We see it in foxes here as well. Foxes that live in urban parks here in Saskatoon, we quite often get calls from the public that they have been chased out of the park by a small fox. And that's because it's protecting its family and just telling that cyclist to keep going. So we tell callers as well, if you run into this situation, treat it no differently than you would if you came across a large stray dog. You keep your dog close to you on a leash, pick up small children, and just back away and leave the area. And that's all they're politely asking you to do.
We were talking about some myths, and in terms of the dogs and like a pet dog, same sort of thing. Okay, they won't approach a human generally. They'll escort you and make sure you leave their territory. But in terms of like a pet dog, do you need to be concerned that this coyote is hungry and hasn't eaten in a while and sees that little chihuahua as a potential meal?
Well, they can't differentiate between a jackrabbit and a small dog. There's no thought process going on. But having a human there with the small dog, and that's why they should always be on a leash and not those flexi leashes that they look like they're unescorted on those kind of leashes because they're long. You have no real control of the small dog. And that when they go into bushes as you're walking, it looks like they're all on their own. So if you are walking and come across a coyote and you have a small dog, scoop it up and back out of the area. Make lots of noise when you're walking as well. So, no, I think if you go out with your dogs and you're aware of your surroundings, not having earbuds in and tuning everything out, but actually engaged in walking your dog, those situations are easily avoided just by being alert and knowing what to do if you see a coyote.
Okay. And then in terms of carrying rabies, are they a rabies carrying species?
Yeah, they are not considered a rabies vector species. Foxes, bats, raccoons, and skunks are. No animal carries rabies. If they get rabies, it's going to be fatal to them. So they don't carry it to spread it around. But like any mammal, they are capable of contracting rabies.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so again, where are these then the misconceptions? How have they grown to be what they are, where people see a coyote in an urban center and they want to steer clear, they're afraid, or perhaps they're on a farm and the chickens are disappearing because there's a coyote in the neighborhood.
That's passed down through the generations as well. You know, my dad killed every coyote that came on the land is what people say, right? it's up to you on a farm to have your chickens well contained. It may not be a coyote that's come in to get them. It could be a great horned owl. People never look up. They always look at ground level for what's coming in for their animals. Weasels can get in absolutely anywhere. So a lot of it is education. Farm dogs kill chickens too, but they never get blamed. We get calls that, we saw a dead cat and then we saw a coyote across the road. The coyote must have killed that cat. The cat wouldn't be there if the coyote had killed it because it would be consumed. They don't kill for fun, they kill only for food. And they use their energy. They have to conserve their energy. We live in a freezing cold province, and they're not running around looking for trouble, trying to be the bad guys at all. They're just simply trying to exist, and they're opportunistic. If that chicken coop looks inviting and they can get in easily, then like any animal who's hungry, that's what they'll do.
How can we as humans coexist with coyotes, knowing full well, as you alluded to earlier, Bonnie, that we as humans keep pushing further and further into the spaces that wildlife call home?
We can try humane hazing techniques. So if you do find on a farm that a coyote is coming onto your land frequently, you can keep scaring them away. You can put out, things that make noise, turn on a radio, flashing lights. If you keep scaring them away, they're intelligent enough that they're going to get the idea, this is not a place I want to be, and I'm going to move on to somewhere else. So humane hazing techniques work quite well.
I talked to a farmer recently and I said, so what do you do for coyotes? What do you do to handle coyotes? And he just looked at me like, handle what? He said, once a year, they come close enough that I don't want them. He said, so I go out and I set off noisemakers and I don't see them again for a year. He said, it's about a year time difference between when they get sort of bold enough to come back in again and check things out, and maybe he's moved or changed his mind and they test it and he does it again and he gets another year of them. They respect boundaries. So if you set those boundaries and you keep the same coyotes, they're generational learners. So the parents teach their young how to coexist. But if you go in and you mix up that little family you have on your land, that's when the trouble can start. So if you can work with the coyotes that you have, and we hear this all the time, many of our volunteers have farms and acreages, and they have been on their farm for 40, 50 years with the same coyote family that understand the boundaries, and they have absolutely no issues.
That's a farming, a rural setting. What about in an urban setting? And, you're walking in a park and see a coyote, circling around the playground in the area. How can people in a more urban setting coexist? What sort of things should they be doing?
Well, like Megan said, the humane hazing. So, one of the things that is really recommended, and it also works for black bears, I wouldn't test it on a grizzly, but it works for black bears, is to have a plastic bag with you when you hike or when you're walking. And you can swoop it, it fills with air when you swoop it through the air, and it makes a loud, weird sound. And you walk towards the coyote, sweeping that through the air, and the noise and you coming at it with this great big thing is something they've never seen before. So you have to remember, with urban coyotes, they've heard it all before. The clapping hands, the honking, whistles, they've grown up with it. It means nothing to them. So you have to be kind of inventive to come up with something that will be new and scary to them. So the plastic bag through the air, as well as popping an umbrella, that's something else they've never seen. So you have to be creative.
Maybe we could explore a little bit, just coyotes in general. Like you talked about how the parents are teaching the young, and it's generational learning. How long do coyotes live for? Do they mate for life? Do they go in packs like wolves do? Give us a little bit of information about their characteristics.
Well, they do mate for life and they live in family units. So it's usually the mom and dad and one or two of the young from the year before who stick around to help them with the pups that are being born this year. So they're not a pack, they are a family, and they do mate for life. And Megan can speak to that probably better than I can because she's worked with so many coyotes.
Yeah, we always release them before when we could rehabilitate them back to their territories exactly where they were found because we know that they're going to meet up with their families. We've had older adults, we've had first year babies in before, so we always make sure to return them back to their families because we know they are so loyal to their family groups.
Yeah, and then how many are they called kits or cubs? How many babies do they typically have in a litter?
Typically 4 to 6 in a litter, and they're very good parents. Both the mom and dad feed and raise the babies and hunt for them, and then teach them how to hunt.
If we're talking specifically about Saskatchewan, and back in 2021, the province made it illegal to rehabilitate coyotes. So, some of the work that you would be doing, taking in injured coyotes, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Were you rehabilitating a lot of coyotes prior to 2021?
We did from 2014 when we started out here until it became illegal. We had at least 15 in, and that includes pups and adults, ones that had been hit by cars, ones that came in with mange, all sorts of reasons. And we had 100% success rate rehabilitating them. Zero aggression. They are one of the, I would say, easier patients that we've had in. And I always joke that I would teach someone, a new volunteer, how to handle an adult coyote before I would teach them how to handle an adult squirrel, because adult squirrels can be a lot more dangerous. So we've had a great deal of success with them and releasing them all. And we were very disappointed when the province made it illegal due to them being called dangerous, because in our experience, they have no aggression towards us. They were grateful to be helped, and we were able to release them all.
What was the justification or the reasoning that was given for labeling them as dangerous in the first place?
Well, at the time we weren't given a reason, so we were really shocked because, as Megan said, it was done with 100% success. So it's not just rehabilitating them. We're not allowed to rescue them at all. Finally, in our discussions with the ministry, we have found out the reason was to stop people feeding them. That only that in the provincial regulations, you cannot feed dangerous wildlife. So by excluding coyotes from that list, people were feeding them. And that naturally brings on most of the issues that happen with coyotes is because of people feeding them. But by putting them on the dangerous animal list, it has left a gap that they are the only animal in the province that no one is allowed to go out for. As far as conservation officers are concerned, there's nuisance animals, which they won't go out for. And usually that's where we would step in. So they were categorized as nuisance along with skunks, raccoons, porcupines, etc. And those are what we rescue all the time. But by putting them on the dangerous animal list, preventing us from going out, and conservation officers still not allowed to go out and rescue them, it's left an animal that no one is allowed to help.
So then what happens when a coyote is injured and needs help with this new law in effect?
We've been instructed to see if there is a farmer nearby that will come out and shoot it for us. Otherwise, let nature take its course. But a coyote hit by a car on the side of the road is not an act of nature. It's cruelty to leave that animal to suffer. So we're in talks with the ministry about it to hopefully make some good changes. And they have been very receptive.
Okay, yeah, we're I'm interested to know, were organizations like yours consulted prior to this law being put into place?
No.
Yeah, it seems just on the surface of it very inhumane to have any animal that is injured, and if you know it's there and you've seen it and it's injured, and not be able to go and do something to help it, whether it is helping it rehabilitate, or if it can't be rehabilitated, then at least putting it out of its misery, sort of thing, right?
It is, and we know that people care so much. People are calling both of our organizations because they care about them and they care that this animal is injured and it's suffering. So there has been instances where people are not going to leave something laying dying at the side of the road, and they've already picked it up and they've brought it home, which can turn into a dangerous situation if they don't know what they're doing. So if we were allowed to attend and help, we have trained volunteers that know what they're doing. So we've had situations where we've gotten permission from conservation officers to have those people take it to a vet to be humanely euthanized. But we have to get permission prior to that because now the animal's already at someone's home.
Are you still getting a lot of calls then about injured coyotes, because you said people are still caring?
Weekly, I would say both our organizations get calls weekly about coyotes.
We had 5 calls yesterday from throughout the province specifically about coyotes.
It must be frustrating for both of you, because your hands are essentially tied, right? There's like, what can you do?
The saddest calls we get, Kathy, are when people have picked up a coyote pup. As Megan said earlier, coyotes are wonderful parents. There's usually 3 or 4 adults caring for these pups. But sometimes people will see a pup on its own. For whatever reason, they pick it up, drive it home, and phone us. And all we can have them do now, instead of bringing it in to rehabilitate this lovely little pup, we have to tell them to bring it to the veterinarian to be euthanized. And that has happened the last couple of summers here in Saskatoon and in Regina, that we've had to instruct callers. And it is so upsetting for everyone, because including the veterinarians, Megan and I both get phone calls from the clinics that we work with, from their staff saying, can't you guys do anything? We don't want to put this pup down. And it's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Because if somebody prior to this law going into effect found an injured coyote, they could call you and your teams would go out and collect the animal and do whatever. But then at least the person who's found the animal is kind of removed at that point. But asking them then to take the coyote to a vet where they know it's going to be euthanized, right? Anybody who's an animal lover knows how terribly difficult and emotional that is, right? To put down an animal.
And it opens up the risk of someone saying, yes, I'll take it, and then keeping it. And then you're into another whole realm of issues.
What would you guys like to see happen then?
We would like to be able to, by working with the ministry, even on a case by case basis, be able to help coyotes again. We have our trained volunteers that are able to go out and safely capture the animal and work with conservation officers, as we do with every other species, to bring them in and get them humane care, not leave them suffering on the side of a road. We're totally equipped to do that. And the level of government that we work with, that we have been in discussions with, have been very supportive. But it seems when you get up higher, it sort of gets lost. So we just want to be able to help an animal that we know we are more than capable of helping safely.
Right. So is there anything that someone who is listening to this could do to help spur that change specifically in Saskatchewan, and I guess specifically if they're living in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I would encourage them to write to their local government officials and let them know that they care, that they, want them off the dangerous list so that we are able to help them. Or even, if they can be transported to a veterinarian or something like that, but no one is allowed to help them. So definitely, if they can reach out to the Ministry of Environment, write letters, emails, phone calls, and let them know how they feel. If they want them to be helped, we are more than willing to help them.
Would you say that there has been any difference in coyote human interaction since this law went into effect?
Not that we're aware of. It was good to put them on a list that prevents people from feeding them. We could not be more in favor of that. But no, we've just seen more needless suffering.
Do you know why they're is no protection? Like, what are your thoughts surrounding that? And it's not just a Saskatchewan issue, right? You mentioned right off the start, Bonnie, that there is a war against coyotes across North America. Why is there not these protections in place for coyotes, yet wolves do have some protection?
That's the age-old question, Kathy. Why is the big question. People in Saskatchewan love wildlife, and I think a lot of people are not aware of just how big the open hunting season is, and even the killing contests that are allowed in this province. They're so inhumane. We've got a couple of cities in the south of the province that every year they put a bounty out, and if you bring in 4 paws and usually the jaw as well, that you'll get $20. And then a few months later, the same rural municipalities that these cities are in put out that you can come and get your free poison to control all of the rodents and mice that are now overrunning your fields and farmyards. And they won't make that connection. So it is as old as time for some reason that people are allowed to go after this beautiful species. You can't tell me that you love your dog and hate coyotes. They're exactly the same, only one is wild. It's just a cruelty that's allowed, and people that care about them, it's hard to get the education out to enough people. It's just a constant need for education and a bigger voice.
I know that education is a huge part of both of your organizations. So, what kind of things are you guys doing on the educational front to try and, obviously you're on the podcast. What are you doing in communities in the rural areas to try and raise that awareness?
Yeah, definitely. We try and speak out when we can. Doing this podcast is a great start. And that was part of our proposal to the Ministry of Environment when we were discussing would we be allowed to rescue and rehabilitate them again, that we would work with people in cities, rural landowners. If they're having issues with coyotes, we will work with them. We can put out education materials, we can spread awareness so that people know that there's another option than just killing them. So that's education is a big portion of that. And I think social media can get out there a lot. But also we would go to rural schools and give talks and start, with the young kids and teach them young so that when they grow up, they have this knowledge.
Yeah, I always think that the youth are a great place to start. Like, even going way back to, just recycling and introducing blue boxes, right? They got in and they taught the kids the importance of this, and they went home and taught the parents, right? And now, for the most part, people are recycling, right? The youth is a good place to start. And you had talked about not feeding the wildlife and coyotes as being part of that. So what else can people do in their own neighborhoods to so that they aren't encouraging coyotes to become habituated and to become more like a pet almost?
Just keep your yards clean. That's a really big one for any wildlife. So, wildlife are on the move, always looking for food and shelter. If they can't find that, they'll keep going. So, don't feed pets outside. Keep your garbage well contained. Luckily, here in Saskatchewan, the raccoons haven't learned how to open up the garbage bins yet. Um, Pick up fruit. We have a lot of fruit, beautiful trees here with fruit on them still at this time of year. Pick everything in the fall, clean up your yard, and keep a well maintained property that doesn't have open spaces under buildings where they can seek shelter.
Do either of you have any, a coyote that you rescued or rehabilitated, and kind of the story around it sticks with you?
I'll let Megan tell the story because it's both of our favorites.
Just prior to 2021, so this is one of the last adults that we were able to rehabilitate, we got a call, I believe both of our organizations, because it was late at night and people don't know who to call. They called the police. there was a woman had hit a coyote on the highway, accidentally, of course. When she pulled into the city, she got out, it was still in the grill of her vehicle, and she didn't know that until she stopped and she could see that it was alive and, of course, panicking. We have a great rescue volunteer. We sent her out to go retrieve it, and she was able to successfully remove it from the grill of the car, contain it, and then bring it to us for
All
rehabilitation.
at midnight in the dark.
Exactly. Yeah. And we took it to the vet the next day for x-rays. It had a fractured leg and some other injuries, head injury. And the vet was able to do successful surgery to repair and pin the leg. And we had her in care for, gosh, at least 6 to 8 weeks while that healed. We went through rehabilitation and physio with her, all while she showed no aggression towards us. We were able to clean her kennel, feed her. And then we found out from the woman where exactly she had hit her on the highway, so that when it was time for release, we took it back to that same location 8 weeks later and were able to release her. And hopefully she reunited with her family.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It must be such a warm, fuzzy kind of feeling when you're able to have such a success story, right? Because you wouldn't think when there's a coyote embedded into the grill of a vehicle that, the outlook is very promising.
Exactly. Yeah. And she was afraid, and the police didn't know what to do. So that's in a case where we were able to go out and help, and it didn't, there wasn't a violent end to it where the police had to go out and shoot it in the grill of her vehicle. We were able to help, and it was successful.
And yeah, and that's a really good point as well, Kathy. Not all police want to go out and shoot wildlife in a neighborhood. It can't be, it's not part of their job, and very upsetting to the public. So we're able to go out and do it very humanely, very safely. Everyone is calm and feeling better about it, doing some good education at the same time. To have someone come in and shoot an animal like that in a residential area, or many of the other calls we've had recently, that if the police were called, there's nothing else to be done for them. That's not good enough for the public. They don't want to see that.
Okay, so going forward, for people who are listening, you talked about, reaching out to your local government official to try and spur some change there. Don't feed them. Keep your garbage secure. Keep your dogs on a leash. Those are my key takeaways. Am I missing anything?
No, just that they're coexisting with us quite nicely, and we can do the same.
And we're still happy to take calls on them, even if we can't help in a certain way. We can offer advice, and maybe there's something we can do.
Thank you, Megan Lawrence from Salthaven West in Regina, and Bonnie Dell from the Wildlife Rescue Society of Saskatchewan, based in Saskatoon. I'm going to put some links to resources and that into the show notes. So for those who are listening, if you're interested in learning more about coyotes and the challenges that they face, you can get that information there. Thank you so much for listening in today. Wild About Wildlife could not exist without our audience, and that is you. So if you like this episode, why not give us a review or leave a comment? By doing that, you're going to help us expand our reach to raise awareness about wildlife conservation. Take care.